So the next thing I'm going to show you is Machine's fantastic ability to record audio and then be able to sort of manipulate and slice audio. Now, I'm not actually going to record anything in, but just to give you an idea of how it works, I'm going to load up a loop that I've loaded into the library myself. Now, you can add any of your sounds that you currently use in your sound library into the Maschine library, and it's really quite clever the way it lets you integrate those sort of sounds. As you go to add sounds, it'll prompt you to sort of create titles and groups to put them all in. So it's very simple to find these sorts of things. So I'm loading up a new group here. I'm just going to go to browse. I'm going to load up a sample. Now I've put these particular loops in loops. I've created a category called techno and create another category after the sample CD that I'm loading from here. You can see I can just load it to any one of these loops and hit load. Have a listen to it there. If it's not what I'm after, just keep rolling through till I find something I like. Cool, that'll do for the moment. So if you imagine that was a break that you'd actually recorded off a turntable, immediately what you can do is you can go in here and you can see you've got a full waveform editor. Now you can also see in the software you've got a full waveform editor up here as well. And some people will find it easy to use a mouse and a keyboard to do their editing. I actually prefer to do the whole thing in Maschine. I think the more things that I can get away from the computer, the better. That's one of the beauties of Maschine. So you can see right here you've got a full waveform editor. You can zoom right in and you can really get into the nitty-gritty of things. Now, one of the greatest things about Machine's ability to work with recorded audio is it's got an auto slice feature similar to what you find in Ableton and now the latest version of Logic as well. And what that does is it allows you to take a loop like we've just put in there and automatically slice the whole thing up here. Now, there's a number of different ways that you can do that. You can split it into an even number of pieces. You can also run it to a grid if you know the original tempo of the loop. And then also it's got a mode very similar to the old recycle where you can basically detect the transients of the sound. So you can go into here. Now if Maschine doesn't sort of slice it properly, and you can hear there's, say you can see you can hear at the end of that there's a little bit of the following sound. You can actually go right in there and have a look at the waveform, and you can adjust the start and end points of these sounds really quite accurately. So I'm not going to spend a great deal of time looking at this now, but you can see any of these you can go in and totally adjust. You can remove them, you can add them, and once that's all done, you can just zoom out, pop out of edit mode, hit apply, and you'll see that Machine's created a MIDI file with each one of these now mapped to a separate key. And we can basically hit play and that'll be playing there. So if we want to now go, if we want to now say turn up the group globally, we can do that quite easily. If we want to put effects onto the group globally, we can do that quite easily. So I'll load up, say, a bit crusher just so you can get an idea of how we could affect that whole loop. We'll just have a quick look through some of the samples that are available to you so you can get a gist of it, because the library really is one of the outstanding parts of Maschine. And if you have a look at some of the artist interviews online, you'll see that seems to be the common thread. All of them are really blown away by just the extent and the quality of the sounds provided in Maschine. And I personally reckon that it's worth the price alone, just the library, There's a few different categories. Basically, you can load up what's called a sound, and a sound is sort of a multi-sampled mapped sound. So it's not an individual sample that you're simply playing different pitches. There's someone's taken an analog synth and recorded every single note individually out of that synth and mapped it to individual notes within Maschine. So within that category, within sounds, if we just go into browse, you'll see you've got a whole bunch. With it, you've got instruments, and within that you've got things like bass, brass, choir, guitars, keys, leads, mallets, organs, pads, plucks, strings, and so on and so forth. So you can see that it's by no means limited to just percussion. But the other thing that really that I find fantastic in Maschine, and one of its strong points for me, is if you go into the samples, you've obviously got drums, and there's a very extensive library of drums, but this bank here called One Shots is utterly phenomenal. There's a whole heap of different categories, things called ambience, analog effects, blips and blops, buzzers, chords, clicks, crackles, and these, for modern electronic music, these are simply amazing. So if we go into analog effects as a go, you'll have a look and you'll hear that all sorts of really interesting sounds here. Now I'll just jump out of here and quickly set up an envelope onto this sound, so we're not listening to the whole sound every time we browse through it. And yeah, if I go through some of these other blips and blops, this has probably got to be my favourite category. As you move through, all kinds of just really unusual percussion sounds. And again, a lot of these have been submitted by some really famous artists, as I mentioned earlier, people like Stefan Bodzanol or Hunderman, two people that I most definitely respect as very talented and cutting-edge musicians. So yeah, we can just move through here, and you can see it's very easy to build up a kit with these. So you can pick something you like, and then you can just, you know, anytime you like something, just move on to another pad. So you can see very quickly we've loaded up a huge library of very unique, very stereo and just beautifully put together sounds, and we can start to arrange those very quickly. We're going to move forward now to having a look how Maschine runs inside your host. There's a great level of integration. I'm going to take you through that now.